People of the verse, hello, welcome to the channel. It's the Eradicator and the Eradicatorette, and in today's video we'll be having a look at some of the next features that will be coming in Star Citizen in the near future that in my opinion are going to be a game changer for the way that we're going to play the game. But before we do that, guys, of course I want to talk about this month's giveaway, as I am giving away $25 in RSI gift card thanks to Buzz69, a member of this community. All you have to do is to subscribe and answer the giveaway related question I'll be asking later, and also on top of that I got a $50 bonus if you subscribe to my new channel, The Eradicators, which is where I talk about anything that is non-Star Citizen related. Also for the people who support me on Patreon or via the join button membership. On Discord I give you away a Thumbwheel Cycle MT. Good luck to everyone out there. Alright guys, well, let's have a look here at those capacitors, because that is really going to be a big change.
The biggest influence in a combat situation is what the players do.
You can do a lot of small decisions and they all matter.
So far, it's pretty much, they're going to talk about what we have right now in the game. It's pretty much the same as what we had yesterday, last week when they talk about the radars, right? It's the current situation, and then they're going to show us how this is going to change.
With these capacitors, we're looking to give players that extra option to make the situation more dynamic. And the more dynamic that situation is, we're hoping the more dynamic the combat is.
That's true, and the more dynamic the combat is, the more fun it is and the more challenging. And at the same time, not everybody is going to have the same strategies, not everybody is going to have the same understanding or comprehension of the system, so it's also going to be a good opportunity for you to have perhaps an edge over any type of opponents you may encounter in the verse.
A good combat experience should be the actions that the player can do in order to modify the outcome of a battle, but not doing in a way that feels gamey. A lot of our combat performance is based on equipment, which you set up very, very easily. Some of the decisions you do in combat are just simply based on, hey, am I overclocking my power plant or not?
Exactly, and that is not interesting. The fact that we have a lot of components is indeed very challenging, because all of those components are in the future going to be quite unique. They're going to have their own properties, and these are properties that you have going to have to keep in mind when you are going to play. Oh, is this component going to use more energy? Is this component going to perhaps allow me to go at a faster speed? These are things that you will have to take under consideration, and because there are so many components, there are so many different kinds of configurations, which is, it's more like it's going to be more than the game of rock, scissors, paper. It's going to be rock, scissors, paper, stone, tea, coffee, microphone, whatever, right? There's going to be so many things to be taken under consideration here. It's the first time you come to a stream here, Derek. Well, welcome to the stream, Derek. Ryan Moore says options makes a game a great game. Absolutely, and blowing up is half the battle. All right, let's continue here.
That is also not a very interesting choice. You do it once before combat, and that's it. You might just move your shield sectors around a bit, right? But the amount of decisions you really do during combat is very limited.
It's a very linear feeling to the combat. So at the moment, you're purely thinking about how you get your gun on your opponent. But we want that to be a very different approach now, where you're thinking about your gun, but then you've got to think about the time where you might have to, kind of outmaneuver them, or you might have to be in a defensive situation if they've managed to get their guns on you.
Yes, there's that. And how do you do that? This is where capacitors are going to come in play. Now, capacitors is something that we have a lot in other games. It is there in Elite Dangerous. Capacitors have been there in the Star Wars flight sims for a very long time. I don't know if you guys have played, TIE Fighters or X-Wing, X-Wing Alliance. Even the latest Star Wars Squadrons had capacitors here, in which you had to make decisions like, are you going to put more power to your engines or to your guns or to your shields? These are going to be gameplay elements that are also going to come with Star Citizen. We are desperately missing those in Star Citizen, but when they will be coming online, you guys are going to see that it is going to make it's going to be a complete game changer.
And then we were like, okay, how can we put in more interesting and more exciting decisions into that, right? And this brings us to the capacitor gameplay, which for us is a way to get very short and exciting bursts of gameplay.
It's about giving
So far, what we're seeing here is what we currently have in the game. This is not what's coming to come in the future. It's going to come in a short moment.
players the choice that they can make a difference. Imagine it as a pool of energy that you have. And this is extra.
There we go. This is the UI of the capacitors here. So here we are having a look at a couple of things. Probably red here should be the laser guns. This is probably going to be the gauge here for the laser, because they're, of course, they're not coming from scratch. This is not a brand new revolutionary idea. As I mentioned before, this is a type of gameplay that has been there in the gaming industry, especially in the flight sim in the flight sim genre for a very long time. And so that's why they have to also make sure that players who are used to this type of genre are going to be familiar with what they are seeing here. So if they keep the same color schemes that we've been seeing in plenty of other games here, we should be eyeing a look at here the gauge for lasers. This probably is the gauge for engines, and this is probably the gauge for shields. Now, what about this one here? It is below thrust here. I would say that this is maybe the capacity of your engines themselves, which is something that we can actually, if we use Alt and the mouse wheel here, this is something that we can use. If, for example, if you have low power to your engine, it's going to allow you to make smoother descents, for example, whereas if you put it maximum power, you can leave atmosphere much faster, right? So that's probably what we are going to see here in the purple gauge. But that purple color here, in my opinion, needs to go. This is not pretty, right? Osiris Angel says it would be tickled to see the day when one could see shields to forward ramming speed to have a meaningful reaction to the ship. Hey, why not, right? Especially if you have voice attack, maybe it's going to be something that will be available.
Extra energy. This isn't energy that the ship already has, it's an extra pool of energy on the ship. And then imagine that you can now choose where this.
There, did you see here? These are the laser repeaters here, and you can see also how the laser repeaters, the energy pool is getting depleted, which means that when it gets depleted, you are not going to be able to use your laser. So what do you do when your lasers are not available because they are recharging, right? Well, maybe you want to put more energy to your engines so that you can maybe get away from the enemy fire until finally your pool is full and you can resume your attack once more. Hey, Ted Wendelbow, how's it going, man?
This energy goes. So if you need some extra thrust to kind of outmaneuver or escape a situation you're not happy in, you can move all the extra energy for a limited amount of time.
Okay, so this is actually, looks like if we have a look here again, yeah, this is actually the energy, the capacitor for the energy. So this is going to maybe, okay, so that's a capacitor for the guns. So probably this is gonna give more power, I guess. Maybe they're gonna make the guns more powerful. I have no idea. This is all pure speculation, guys. But already you guys can see my excitement, right? All these various possible different kinds of parameters that you're gonna have to be thinking of when you are flying this time. This is going to make flying in Star Citizen far more exciting than it already is.
Limited amount of time to the thrusters, and then they'll perform at a higher window, basically until the capacitor runs out.
These effects are drastic. These are really drastic. You cannot swap charges between, for example, guns to shields or something like that. That does.
Okay, so we cannot swap charges. So for example, if your guns are fully charged, you cannot put that energy to shields. Okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Like, transferring energy wouldn't make any sense. This is also not something that we have in other games.
Work, but you can tell each subsystem which should be preferred for regenerating.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of taping down your fire button, if you use energy weapons, you are now forced to pick when you're actually going to fire them, right?
Here, Ted doesn't agree here. Ted thinks that this is not going to be exciting. It's going to be a pain in the backside. And this is where I don't agree with you, Ted. Ted, as a veteran, I don't know about you, Ted. Please let me know in the chat down there. How long have you been playing space sim games? But as a veteran space sim gamer myself, back from the old X-Wing, TIE Fighter days, I've been playing space sims since the 1990s. This is something that I personally have always enjoyed, this whole management thing, having the action and management at the same time, which keeps you busy the whole time. You know, you're flying your joystick. It's going to be quite annoying, especially if you're flying with mouse and keyboard. That I agree. So probably it's going to be easier to be flying with a joystick. You've been playing Space Sims for about 4 years, so you know capacitors, man. You should be used to them. They've always been in this genre. There's always been capacitors. It's always been like that, and it's something that should have been expected, right? Mr. Azai says, wow, this sounds amazing and will totally change everything about flight. Time to whip about my Stream Deck for more hotkeys. Yes, we're definitely going to need extra hotkeys here to be as effective as possible, especially if you're playing with mouse and keyboard. You're going to want to have those hotkeys next to WASD. Absolutely. Hey, Ira, say, I've watched you for a couple of times. I've never caught you live. Just want to say thank you for. Well, thank you, Still Star. Thank you so much. Right? Jay Burmack says they love the X-wing versus TIE Fighter. Sorry, I called you they. He loved the X-wing versus TIE Fighter and all the surrounding games. Yes, me too. How about Star Wars Squadrons? It's always been more like the power triangle, not the capacitor. I think that the capacitors is pretty much going to be the power triangle. Could be wrong, but it's going to be quite similar. I think it's just that they're making it sound, you know, like it's the next new thing, but it's just the same old thing. I'm going to have to upgrade my HOTAS to one of the more capable mapping buttons. Yes, Shadow Rise, perhaps. I just hope that it is going to be. Practical here with mouse and keyboard. Jay Burmax says not crazy about Squadrons. Yes, me too, Jay Burmax. And watch out for the new channel, the Eradicators. Next week, I will be having a piece about why Squadrons failed. This should be an interesting one. Anyway, let's resume.
And these weapons, they will run out very, very fast.
And the players that can think ahead.
And by the way, I want to talk about something else here. Here, Yogi Klatz says that the weapons are going to run fast of energy. And this makes sense because right now, I mean, when you look, Chris Roberts loves movies. He loves space movies. And right now, when we have a look at, you know, how space combat is happening in Star Citizen, it doesn't really look like in the movies. What people do is they just click on the two mouse buttons, and people just fire the guns non-stop. You could fire your guns for 1 minute straight without ever stopping, and that kind of looks a little bit lame if you'd ask me. So having those capacitors is going to force you to have your perfect angle of attack, and then you are going to fire when you are going to be the most effective, and stop firing until your guns eventually regenerate, and then try again. This is going to make also combat much more dynamic and much less boring, much less repetitive than they currently are. Mark my words, guys. Mark my words.
Manage that situation. We think they'll have the advantage in combat.
You need to strategically employ the limited resources you have.
So it isn't just about the flight of the ship, or it isn't just about one particular angle on the ship. It's about all these different things that come together to give a particular style of combat, which we want to be a positional combat situation.
And
that's what he said. That's exactly what he says. A positional combat situation. They want you to have the perfect position of your ship compared to your enemies, so that then you have the perfect angle of approach, and then you fire. You're not going to fire non-stop all the time and hope that you're going to hit your target. This is not how it's supposed to be, and let's face it, it just sucks.
I'm very convinced that this is the interesting part where dogfighting will get really exciting again.
Yes.
In terms of where we are exactly right now is we almost have the archetype tunings for our four main fighter categories done. Mm-hmm. The next step is to make sure that the weapons fit in these categories, and that we're getting the kill times and the maneuvering offsets into the place where we want them.
Yeah, and that is also an extremely good point, guys. Time to kill, because let's remember, because of capacitors, if we currently keep the same model as we have now with capacitors, time to kill is going to be extremely long and tedious. The ships are going to be way too tough. They need to make the ships more fragile because we are going to fire the weapons less, and we need to have the amount of time that when we are, we need to have make sure that when we are actually hitting the targets with the capacitors, when we hit those targets, this needs to be meaningful, because otherwise, if we can just fire for 10 seconds and then the capacitors prevent us from firing, and then we have to wait for the guns to recharge and eventually be able to target, there's going to be so much time that will be spent. In the meantime, we need to make sure that, you know, when we have a right angle in order to fire our guns, and if we hit our target, this is gotta be it, just like in the movies, right? And that's what they need to be doing. That's what they need to be tweaking and balancing in order to make this work.
You know, we don't want to kind of limit the ships enough where it doesn't feel like the ships are at a performance window. We want to keep that performance window where it feels like you're pushing the limits of yourself and you're pushing the limits of the ship. And that's something we're very keen, you know, to kind of keep, because we're kind of happy with that in terms of the current balance.
So it's a very complex undertaking. We want to do it right.
Now we have to do a lot more testing. We have to do a lot more balance. We're going to use what happens and look at the results, look at all.
Yeah, that's why they have Arena Commander. Arena Commander is a great tool for CIG to test out their new gameplay components, for sure. Here, Shadowrise says that limited shots will make pilots use control bursts rather than spray and pray. Yes, absolutely, spray and pray right now. It's been how it's always been, basically, since the very first days of Alpha 1.0, but it's finally going to change, right? Carlton XL says shield generation, constantly recovering full shields in between every 10 shots could make it impossible otherwise, which is why they need to tweak everything, and they need to make sure that everything has got the right balance. Absolutely, shield generation needs to be much smaller, right? And also the shields must be also far less strong than what they currently are, right?
Things the players are doing, look at the choices they're making, and make sure it's right, and make sure the balance is correct, and make sure all the differences between the ships align with our expectation of where they should be. It's going to be a feature that evolves over several releases for us.
Okay, so it will actually be over several releases. All right, guys. Well, this is something that I am really excited about. This is something that we've seen in plenty of other video games. It is going to really change how combat is going to happen in Star Citizen, and I cannot wait for it. But guys, it's time for the giveaway question, and please let me know in the comments down section in the YouTube video, not in the live stream, guys. It doesn't count in the live stream, but we're gonna have to do it in the comment section of the YouTube video. Which other space sim have you played with capacitors in which you think that those capacitors were satisfactory? Let me know in the comments down below. I think that for me, the best capacitor gameplay was in the X-Wing series, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing Alliance. This was awesome. I think that capacitors are also pretty good in Star Wars Squadrons, one of the few features in Star Wars Squadrons that I thought was good, and I hope that they're going to take inspiration from those games. But if you have any other games that you have in mind, please let me know in the comments section down below. Now, here's my question. How is the co-pilot going to affect the pilot experience? For example, let's say I'm a pilot and my co-pilot is handling the missiles. What if I want to do the missiles myself and say, hey, you suck. You know, you don't know what you're doing. Let me take care of the missiles myself. Will it be possible to do that? And this is something that unfortunately this video did not answer. Oh, it looks like the Reclaimer. All right, it's the Reclaimer. That's why I've never flown a Reclaimer, guys, so that's why I had no idea. What UI is that? This looks like, to me, this is the Banu Defender. Yeah, it's totally the Banu Defender, Steel Shark. Yeah, it's the Banu Defender.
All the information that is on a particular task, and that's basically, you know, what an operating mode is.
So operating modes that exist in the game right now are Quantum Drive, scanning is an operating mode.
And we've also got
mining, right?
Well.
Yeah. Okay, so these are basically the special type of UI that we see when we're doing an activity. Okay, that makes sense. So it's basically any type of UI that is not flying. So those operator modes do not give you any indication that are going to be useful if you want to be flying a ship, which makes sense. So scanning, mining, and what did they say? Quantum drive. In quantum drive. Okay, so we're gonna have more, and missile is going to have its own dedicated mode. Okay, that's very nice. Well, that means that if we have if missile does have its own mode when flying, that means that it's going to be quite difficult to be firing missiles while you are flying your ship at the same time. This is mining here.
Forwards, certainly multi-crew is not quite where we want to be.
Hey, Dragon Ghost.
And so we decided to manipulate operator modes a little bit and allow different people in different seats to be in different operator modes. So the co-pilot could be in, for example, scanning mode, while the pilot is in flight mode. This would allow the co-pilot to have control of all the scanning stuff, while the pilot doesn't have to worry about that, doesn't have control of those items.
That's great, because taking care of scanning can be quite annoying, especially you're trying to scan, but when you are scanning, you don't have the altimeter. Qu'est-ce que tu veux, mémé? Tu veux voir maman? Okay, she wants to see mommy. Bye-bye. Yeah, mommy is also working from home, so I'm not alone anymore taking care of the baby girl. You just talked to Disco Lando, and he said that there were 9 picoballs at anyone, and no one here has found it. Pico! No, let's not talk about Pico. I don't want to hear about Pico. Now, but we can talk, however, about those operator modes. What was I saying? Yes, I was saying that when you are using those operator modes, especially I think that when you are in atmosphere, this can be a little bit dangerous, because let's for example the scanning, when you are mining and you are scanning for rocks, then you don't know what is your altitude. And if you don't know what your altitude is and your speed at the same time, especially when you are flying at night, this can be extremely dangerous. Shadow Rise says, eradicate all picos. Yes, I wish we could eradicate the picos, right? You have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and you feel it's still sharp. Yeah, they're so adorable.
And can instead just worry about flight. So that's quite an exciting change for multi-crew going forward, especially. So the operator mode we're working on at the moment is missile operator mode, which is the first new one that we're looking at.
The goal behind missile operator mode is to give players quick access to the missiles in combat, because there's a particular range and a particular time when missiles are the right.
Okay, so here we have, let's have a look here. This is the new UI format. It seems that we are still seeing at least the speed of the ship, so that's great. And we are not in atmosphere, so there's no need for altimeter. So here we are looking here at the missiles. So these are the amount of missiles that we have at our disposal, the type of missile here, and the amount of missiles that can be fired at the same time.
And it was taking a lot of what we learned with the...
Look at that. Did you see both missiles here going off at the same time? That's great, being able to fire 2 missiles instead of just one.
Previous method with missiles to communicate that.
We can finally select the between missiles easily. Oh yes, that's true. Here we are selecting the Vipers, and before it was the Arrestor, right? Look at that, Arrestor, Viper, and now Viper, Arrestor.
That.
Boom. I hope that it's just going to be a little key that's going to allow to switch missile types.
The way that missile operator mode works right now is in a single pilot ship, you have the option to switch between your guns and then into missile operator mode and back out again.
Okay, so you will not be able... That means that you will... Right now, for example, you want to send a missile, you can just, fire and do the little middle mouse button and fire the missile at the same time. It's a bit cheesy, right? And at the same time, it's clunky, it doesn't work so well. With a new operator mode, it's not going to be the case anymore. You will have to focus your attention to missiles if you want to be sending one of those missiles, which I believe people are going to be shooting less missiles, because you're probably going to want to have some kind of distance between yourself and your opponents. And at the same time, if you are in a one-on-one combat situation, it's going to be far more difficult to be firing these missiles too, because the time you are spending trying to shoot that missile is going to be time that your opponent is going to have to shoot at you with lasers.
So you can't use both at the same time. But if you've got a multi-crew ship and you're in a pilot seat and you've got a co-pilot, you can use the guns, and your co-pilot can have complete control over the missile system.
Oh my. This is going to make multi-crew ships so overpowered compared to single-player ships. And this is the way it is supposed to be. I know it's maybe not a popular opinion, but this is going to make ships like the Constellation far more attractive compared to what they currently are. For example, this is going to make the Mercury Star Runner also a more dangerous threat, because the Mercury Star Runner does have missiles that can be fired, right? So while the pilot will be firing the lasers and the people will be the gunners will be in the turrets, the co-pilot will be able to fire the missiles as well. There will be a reason to have a co-pilot Shadow Rise, absolutely. And the more missiles you're gonna have, the merrier. It's going to make, I'm gonna have to get a Constellation. It's going to make Constellation so much more attractive. You can also hire NPCs as well. No, I don't think that it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be available in the future, but it will take some time, unfortunately, Carlton. Sadly.
At the same time,
You can pre-select how many missiles you want to fire. Lock them
Oh,
all
the
on,
Reliant
fire them
Tana,
in a
yes.
volley. That's quite fun to watch. Big anime blast of missiles as they fire off into the distance.
we're hopeful that we've given the players enough information that
There you go. So we got that little red circle here for the missile lock. Does it become
when
green?
they lock a target in missile operator mode, they understand that they've locked it. But
Look at that. 3 missiles were fired at the same time. That is going to make a lot of
they
damage.
also understand the next stages, which is how much of a lock do you have, and what are your chances of hitting your target at that particular time. And being in missile operator mode gives you all that information. So along with missile operator mode, we've also done a complete rework of the missiles, which now fly under an IFCS2 system, so they're very, very similar to the ships.
Good. Missiles are no longer in God mode. They are going to be subject to the same type of flight mechanics as ships. And that makes sense, missiles should not be an exception. But can you believe, guys, that missiles are going to be basically following the same mechanics as ships? How I mean, given how complex Star Citizen is, how insane is this?
So, for example, one of the big changes is missiles now have fuel.
Of course, well, of course they should have fuel.
So as they maneuver more, as they accelerate, they will consume more fuel, which allows you to outrun them and outmaneuver them.
And they're going to have a
Now, how much fuel are they going to have, right? How long is it going to be until the missiles run out of fuel and you're finally safe? This is going to make epic chases, like in Attack of the Clones, Star Wars Episode 2, where Jango Fett is chasing Obi-Wan Kenobi, firing the missiles, and Obi-Wan's trying to escape the missiles, right? That's exactly how it's going to be as well.
very limited opportunity to come back at you if you manage to evade a missile.
We've also split up the missiles' flight into 3 different phases. So the first
Look
phase,
at that. There's the Constellation. The Constellation's got so many missiles. It is going to be an amazing ship with this new one. I need to get a Constellation.
boost phase, where the missile is attempting to just pick up speed and get to top speed as fast as it can. Once the boost phase has expired, it goes into intercept phase, where the missile is trying to generally track towards the target, attempting to intercept it.
Oh, man.
And then when it gets even closer, it switches to full tracking, what we call terminal phase, where it puts all of its effort into trying to hit the target, because it's now pretty close. As far as where we're at right now, we're confident about it. We didn't rush it out last quarter. There were a few quality of life things that we wanted to make sure we had before we released.
So they're explaining here why it got delayed. Makes sense. Always nice to have an explanation.
We're a fairly small team, but I'm very proud of the efforts that we've done so far, and also our interaction with the community as well, because we are a player-facing team, because we're an experienced team. A big part of this for us is players understanding that the game's always moving forwards. We're always trying to improve everything we've ever done, and it's not going to stop.
This is amazing. This is amazing, and again, is going to show how much the game is going to change with those missile operator modes and how missiles are going to fire. This is truly, guys, it is truly spectacular, and it is going to make fighting in Star Citizen so much more fun, which, in the end, let's not face it, guys, that Star Citizen is a combat game first and foremost. Yeah, we can trade, we can mine, but in the end, most people, I believe, play Star Citizen because of the pew pew and the pff, right? That's what they love. That's what they want. Shadowrai says he's in love with the new missile UI. Absolutely. The trajectory UI is pretty cool as well. I love the fact that they have fuel. I love the fact that Constellation, the Constellation is finally great again. They made the Constellation great again. That's great. And I'm very enthusiastic here about the future of Star Citizen. When is this coming? Let's have a look at the roadmap. I think it's in 3.14, but I could be wrong, right? New missile balance options come with the change. Of course, missiles are going to have to be a little bit less powerful, I would say. FPS radar and scanning. This is coming in 3.14. Weapon changes. Wait. Yeah, that's terrain. That's okay. Missile guidance and control rework. So that's probably going to come here. That's the new missile. The new missiles with IFCS 3.14. How about missile operator mode is also in 3.14. Yep. All right. Okay. Well, that's going to make 3.14 even more exciting, I guess, right? With that comes the end of this live stream. Guys, thank you so much for sticking with me today. As always, it's always a pleasure to create this content with you guys. How many people do we have today? We got about 55 people. So thank you so much to all of you guys who came here and followed this episode of Inside Star Citizen. This is the Eradicator. I'll see you guys later. This video is brought to you by the people who support this channel on Patreon and via the join button as well. Supporters of the channel get access to lots of cool perks such as access to my private Discord, your question answered in the show, you get to know when I'm going to play, and also you get to have a chance to influence the editorial line of the channel. Any help is appreciated, starts at just $1 a month. Thank you very much for watching. This is the Eradicator, and I'll see you guys later.